there, friends, insane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10, some sort of a board game related topic, or whatever else happens to be on my mind. Well, I was going to talk about going to Japan, but in the meantime, something amazing showed up. And I kind of, sometimes games take over my life. And whenever they do, I've got to talk about them. I guess I'm kind of spoiling my final thoughts that I think this game's pretty special. But let's talk about it. This game is called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Anytime there's a title that you have to explain, feels like a small failure. But the game itself is one that it's from Czech Games Edition. It's kind of their big release this year. And it's actually by a newer game designer, and he has 3 games out this year. One that I have not played called Tea Garden, but one called Galilei, and then this one. And both of those 2 space-themed games are pretty amazing. So anyway, what is it about? Well, you are somebody on Earth, a scientist team, I guess, and you are searching the cosmere for any kind of signs of life. So you're going to be sending out probes. You're going to be, pointing your telescope at various areas of space. You're going to be doing, whatever you can to try and see if you can find some sort of alien life forms. This game is very much a Euro game, right? This is not, we're going to have the aliens show up and then fight them by playing, music or getting them sick or anything like that. There's no combat in the game. It's just sort of, you're trying to be not even the first person to find the aliens, but you're trying to, get the most points. So let's talk about it, and I'll tell you what I think. I guess I already have, but I'll tell you a little bit more. So so how does it play? Well, at its core, it's just, it's I don't even really know how to describe it, but it's one of those games where you're going to take actions over and over and over again until you pass. It's not a worker placement game. You're not, taking somebody's spot. Kind of at its heart, you've got these cards, and they're multi-use cards. Although, for the most part, they're used for one thing, but they have 2 sort of side uses that they can do. And you have this big board, and this board represents the galaxy and, close by or nearby stars. And these are different components than I have. This must be a prototype. But at the heart of the game is really your cards, and I, of course, can't find them now. But you're going to have cards. There, you can see some here. And the cards are going to be, you can use them as a sort of a throwaway action. They'll give you some sort of a small resource, and that resource is always a reputation, a credit, or movement of one of your probes. Or you can pay money and use the card for its sort of its base effect. Each card has an effect that it does. You can kind of see here, this one would cost, am I showing? I'm not showing. I did it again. Let me pull up the screen share here. I can't show you the picture if I don't have the picture up. So let's hope that that's working here. So we have here, you can kind of, it's not particularly, yikes. So yeah, the cards, they're going to have sort of a resource in the corner you can use them for their main effect. Or sometimes you can tuck them under this income card, which is going to give you some sort of income at the start of every round. And the kinds of income it is going to be is generally the 3 major resources: cards, energy, and money. And then you can also throw cards away, I think 2 to 1 to kind of turn into a resource. But basically, that's, these cards that you have, and you won't have many, are kind of the core of what you're going to do on your turn. On your turn, you're going to take one main action. One thing you can do is play a card, pay its cost, do what it says. You can also, and you've got this player board down here. You can launch a probe, and launching a probe costs 2 money, and you're going to put the probe out on Earth. And so Earth is going to be here in these probes are already on Earth, and Earth is of course part of the solar system here. And the solar system is gradually going to rotate in a counterclockwise, I think, direction. Um, and so things are going to move around, but you're pretty much always going to launch your probes on Earth, and then you can use free actions to move them around. You can spend an energy just to move it to an adjacent space, and eventually they're going to make it out to these planets. There's sort of these planets that are farther away. There's nearby planets. When you get to a planet, you can use another action on a future turn to land the probe. And at that point, it no longer counts as a probe. And there's two ways you can land it. You can pay 1 money and 1 energy to land it, or pay kind of a varying cost, 3 if there's no satellite, and 2 if there is a satellite. And then you're going to be landing it out on this board. So for example, if I sent my probe to Saturn on this galaxy board, right over here, so I moved it 1, 2, 3, then I would be able to, as an action, send it out here to Saturn. If I send it as a satellite to orbit Saturn, I'm going to get these resources. That's going to be reputation, some trace, or some, I forget what they're called, but basically probes that are out there, echoes in space or whatever. Traces. No, I don't know why I can't remember the word, but and you can get some future income. Or if you put it on the surface of the planet, you're going to get usually some data, and then often some points, and usually a life, a trace of life. So let's talk about the traces first. So there's 3 different colors of these proofs of life that you can get. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to have placed 2 aliens face down, 2 alien species. You won't know what they are. There's 5 that come in the game. And as soon as all 3 life traces have been found, the purple, the yellow, and the blue, then that's going to flip this thing over. There'll be a bit of setup, and now we know what this alien species is, and we're going to kind of, know what it does. There'll be more spaces to place on. Usually there's going to be always there's going to be cards that are going to come about as a result of having found this alien life form, and you're going to sort of start using it at that point. And there's 2 in every game, so there's one will get discovered at one point, and then the other one will. And they I think pretty much will always get discovered unless you're really not doing what you should. But you kind of need them to, because that's where you're going to get a lot of points, is by interacting with these things. You can also buy technology. There's a bunch of different technologies, 12 different ones, that are going to improve either your ability to launch and move satellites, your supercomputer, or your whatever I was calling it before, when you're kind of pointing your telescope at space and finding these echoes, or whatever they're called. So another action you can do is your supercomputer. As you collect data, you're going to put it on this supercomputer. When it's all the way full, you can spend 1 energy and just run it. And that's not going to get you anything really, except it will get you, that's how you're going to get the blue trace. And then the final way to do things is with the pink, and the pink action is where you kind of scan the solar system. And there's different ways you're going to do it. You'll scan 1 into the sector of where Earth is. You'll scan 1. You'll kind of discard a card from the display and put 1 there, and then you can upgrade this so you can place even more of these tokens out. And so you're sort of putting them out in these spots, and when the spot is all the way full, someone's going to win it, and that person's going to get the pink life trace, and then everybody else just gets a consolation prize, and then it'll reset so you can go out there as many times as you want. And that's a lot of the game. It's not everything, right? These alien species are going to be different, but basically you're going to keep going until you don't want to do anymore, then you're going to pass, you're out for the round. One interesting kind of fun thing about it is at various points in the game, this solar system is going to rotate, and it rotates in a predictable fashion. The first time it rotates, it's going to be this kind of top ring that rotates. It's going to rotate 1 space. Then the middle ring is going to rotate, and that will also rotate the top space. And then finally the bottom ring will rotate, and that will rotate the whole thing, of course. And that kind of keeps it so that things are not always in the same place. You can't just always do the same thing. You've got to be kind of dynamic with your probes. And yeah, you're going to keep going. There's a lot of goals and bonuses and ways to get points during the game and a few ways to get points at the end of the game. Your different cards you're going to have are all going to have different effects and bonuses on them, many of which are missions, which are either going to get you points or some kind of bonus resources. Lots of things to consider. There's also an excellent solo mode. It's a very well designed one, very easy, and with kind of a ramp up difficulty level that, I think level 3 is probably where I'm at the difficulty. 1 and 2 were too easy, but I've lost on level 3, so I know it's about my level. And I think it goes up to 5, so I'm far from a master. But yeah, that's kind of very quickly how the game works. So let me put this away here, and I'll tell you what makes the game special. All right, first of all, that deck of cards. The cards are very simple, but there's, I don't know, 150 different cards, and they're all, whatever number there are, they're all different. So, you're going to get different cards every game. There may be some that you love, but each one does its own different thing. But they're not always right for the right thing, right? Maybe you want to throw it away so you can get that reputation, which is how you get the technology upgrades. Maybe you want to throw it away just to move your probe because you're out of energy, but you want to land something. There's just a lot to do. The cards are a very dynamic system. You never have very many. Your hand limit at the end of the round is 4, I think. So, you're going to have just a few of them, and you only draw a couple each round. So it's very manageable, but there's a lot of variety in those cards. Secondly, I love the variety of the alien species. We didn't really talk about them, but there's 5. There's one where you have these powerful bonuses, but the person who triggers, they have this danger resource, and the person with the most danger is going to lose 10% of their points. And that sounds like a lot, but, it's about 15 points. Not great, right? You don't want to lose 15 points. But if you were able to play for 3 or 4 of these and get 40 points, well, losing 15 isn't that bad. You're still going to be at a net positive. There's another one where it has all these really good bonuses, but they take a while. So you play the card and you put a marker out on the score track, and when you get up to it, that's when you activate it. There's one with these little insects in there, and you gotta kind of go around to these planets and find them and then take them back to Earth and then get the bonuses for them. There's a lot of different things to try and explore. There's 5 different ones in the game. We'll talk about that a bit in a moment, but I like the variety. I like that turns are pretty fast. Occasionally you'll have a big turn where, one thing triggers another thing, which triggers another thing. But because you're limited to one main action, it's going to be pretty fast. It's going to be, okay, I'm going to play this card. Okay, I'm going to land my probe. Okay, I'm going to launch a probe, whatever it happens to be. So turns are pretty fast. The game is not short. It's the box says 40 minutes per player. That's probably about right. And because of that, you might want to play with a smaller player count, especially early on when you're learning. But it's a long game, a longish game, but it's a very engaging game. And you never really feel like you're sitting around just because the board is moving so dynamically and you have cards to consider and you're watching what other people do, because even if it won't affect you directly, it might, make something more difficult for you if they rotated the solar system and now you're going to need extra energy to get where you were going, whatever it happens to be. So, it's a very engaging game. And the turns are pretty simple. The rules are also very well written. With one exception, which we'll talk about in a moment, everything was pretty clear, right? The rule book is this large format, and it has lots of examples, lots of pictures. It's very approachable, very easy to read, very easy to reference. I almost never say it, but I have almost no qualms with the rule book. There's a nice player aid. Kind of. The player aid is hidden. It's kind of on your little player board. It would be nice if there'd been like a little rundown of these are the 10 things you can do on your turn. But they're all there, and once you kind of remember it, they're ultimately, they're ultimately going to be pretty self-explanatory and easy to remember once you get into it. So, also the game's just a lot of fun. It doesn't really feel like anything out there. it is, a Euro game. You're trying to get points, but it feels different. It definitely has its own soul. And it looks pretty good. I mean, it's not going to win any awards, but for its artwork, but each card is based on some kind of scientific-y thing, and there's a little flavor text if you want to read what it is. But it's not a bunch of stock photos, so that's all, at least it doesn't look like it is. I guess I don't know. But the iconography is very clear. Everything, with one exception, is pretty just straightforward, yet the game doesn't feel boring, it doesn't feel long, and it manages to feel fresh and fun. So where's the but? All right, the first one I'm going to say, there's one rule in the game that is very difficult to teach and remember. There's three kinds of cards that are mission cards. There's ones with a gold kind of bar on them. Those are endgame scoring. Very easy. There is, the other two are like, I forget the name. There's one that's a triggerable mission, and there's one that's just a mission. And there's a rule that you can only trigger one triggerable mission per action. And it's not really clear. It is, right? They're sort of formatted slightly differently, but it's not immediately apparent which is which. It's not like one's in blue and one is in white. It's one's kind of has this little kind of an off-white box, and the other one has circles to place things. But I wish that it were really very crystal clear which ones are the, once per turn and only after you've played the card missions, and which ones are the, if the game state happens to be this, when you play the card, go ahead and complete it. That I found was always something people were confused with. People often didn't, necessarily remember which one it was and then felt disappointed. I wish that had been a lot clearer. Also, and this is a very small but, there's only 5 alien species, and I think the game needs about 15. And that's because this game is really going to thrive on its variety, this sort of anticipation of what am I going to find today in the, on the bottom of those placards, I think, is a little bit dampened when, okay, yeah, flip it over. It's the one that does the little anomaly tokens. We're trying to be the top of these tracks. It kind of, after 4 or 5 games, you've seen everything a couple of times, and it starts to feel a little samey. So I think if there had been 15 different alien species, I don't know, we don't need 100, but 15 or 10 even would be enough that you had, guaranteed some sort of variety. And who knows, right? If the game sells well, I'm sure that will come. That seems like the easiest way to kind of bolt on an expansion that will integrate easily but not overwhelm the game. I wish that had been more out of the box. And honestly, those are my only 2 negatives. I mean, this is really a very fascinating game. I have almost nothing bad to say about it. I wish one rule were clearer. I wish it had more of this kind of interesting variety. So what's my final rating? Currently, it's at a 9. I could see it going up to a 10. I mean, this is going to be one of my top 10 games of the year. I'm almost sure of it. I don't know how it will stack up when compared against other amazing games that from this year, like Primal, for example. But I really like this. And this designer, what's his name? Tomas Holek. He's one to watch. I have never heard of him before this, but this and Galilei are just such interesting games that feel different. They feel scientific without, being a science game. They're fun to play. They sort of explore new and interesting areas of the Eurogame genre, and I think it's fantastic. So it's a 9 out of 10. We'll see if I play it more. I will say the solo is just fantastic. I mentioned it before, but it's engaging. The solo player turns are really fast, so you don't really have to do a whole lot of upkeep and stuff. It's just very intuitive yet fun to play. I really like this. I really like almost every aspect of the game. Oh, I wish the box were a little bit easier to organize. It kind of is a big mess in the box. Yeah, but other than that, this game is a winner. So go out and try it. I don't know when it will be available widely. I ordered mine from Europe, so it had come out at Essen, but I'm sure it'll come out in the US pretty soon in sort of broader distribution. Obviously, try before you buy. But if you like Euro games, sort of turn your yellow cube into a gray cube, into a black cube, into 4 points. This does that, but it does it in a fresh, new, interesting way with a great theme that's kind of this nicely, nicely layered on, not kind of pasted on, but really feels like some thought went into it, and lots of variety and fun. I think you'll really enjoy it. Give it a try. That is SETI, a 9 out of 10 for me. And that is going to take us to the end of this week's Wednesday Whimsy. I'll be back next week, which is when I'll probably talk about Japan. And then I don't know if I'll be able to, I'll try and pre-record another one because I will be in Japan at that point. But we will see. I always love recording these, and I try not to miss. So we'll see what I can do. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this show. And until next time, I'm going to wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I will see you back next time, hopefully, for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.